Welcome to this free immigration help channel. Today is July 23rd, 2024, and in this video I will show you how to fill out the application for travel document I-131. Before beginning this video, as always, I'm going to mention, as I mention in every video on this channel, I am not an immigration attorney. This is not legal advice. All the information provided in this video, on this channel in general, is going to be directly from official government sources. In this case, it is U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, uscis.gov. In this video, I will show you first of all, we'll talk about what the I-131 is all about, what kind of travel documents there are out there, who can file online and who cannot. And of course, we will go through the process of filling out the whole application, and we will talk about the fees and where to file if you are filing a paper application. So let's start from the very beginning on where to find the application I-131. This is the official government website again for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, uscis.gov. I will put the links in the description below. This is what the front page, homepage looks like. So from here you can either search, type in 131 in the search box, or you can go to forms. Usually the more popular forms are available right here, most accessed forms, but we will click on all forms here, and it will open up all of the immigration forms that are available on USCIS. You can use the search by content here once again, or you can just scroll down. They are all in alphabetical numerical order. So there you go, I-131. The very first thing you're going to notice is that there is an option to file this application online. So let's open up this link, and it will tell us who is eligible to file this application online. So it is currently available for individuals requesting parole based on urgent humanitarian reason or significant public benefit for an individual outside the United States under certain types of application, who are not seeking initial parole under USCIS family reunification policy. Also, individuals inside the United States already paroled into the United States who are requesting a new period of parole or re-parole. So keep that in mind. And then you cannot file online if you are filing for a CFRP add-on derivative beneficiary. So make sure you verify whether you can file online or you cannot. And if you can file online, I would highly recommend doing it online because it makes it a lot easier. It takes the guesswork out of how much you need to pay for the application, because once you are done submitting all the documents, and you can upload them online as well, you will have the exact fee that you need to pay, that you can pay using the credit card, debit card, and that's it. Also, you're taking out the guesswork on where you need to file the application, the correct address. You don't have to worry about that because it automatically sends it into the electronic benefit center that USCIS uses to collect all of these applications, online applications that they receive. So if you can do it online, do it online. But in this video, we're going to be using the paper application, the PDF form, which is going to be pretty much exactly like the online. So you can follow all of the questions, all of the parts that are going to be in the PDF application. You will see the same questions asked in the online application as well. All right, let's briefly talk about the types of travel documents before we start the application. And you can find that information here in this link. See our travel documents page. I will put that link in the description below. And let me close this. There are a few different travel documents, types of travel documents that you can apply for. There is advanced parole document, which allows you to travel back into the United States without applying for a visa. All right. And most of the times you would apply for an advanced parole if you have a pending I-485 application to register permanent residence, or Form I-589, which is the application for asylum. So if you're pending asylum or pending permanent residence, you will be applying for advanced parole if you do need to travel. There is also a refugee travel document. Refugee travel document you will be applying if you do have a granted refugee status or granted asylee application, or if you're a derivative asylee or refugee. There is also reentry permit, and it is specific for permanent or conditional residents if they are planning to travel outside of the United States for longer than a year. If you are planning to do that, you would have to apply for re-entry permit. There's also temporary protected status travel document, which obviously is for people with the TPS status, temporary protected status. And there is also carrier documentation, which is for the airline crew. All right, so very self-explanatory, but again, if you need to go through this, you can go through it on this page, travel documents. I'll put the link in the description below. Okay. So let's move on to the actual application, I-131. There is instructions for form I-131. It is not too big. I will put the link in the description below. If you can, I would highly recommend. It's only 16 pages. Go through the whole instructions and read the whole thing. A lot of this information will not be applicable to you because it talks about all of these different travel documents that you will only need to apply for one. Obviously, you don't need to know everything about the other ones, but it still be very helpful and clear to understand the application itself. So if you can, go through it. Okay, so this is the application for travel document I-131. This is what it looks like, the PDF. The current version that is right now out there, you can check in the edition date, is for April 1st, 2024. So just recently there was an update. Make sure you are filling out the updated information on the updated application. On the application itself, you can check the edition date. Here it is at the bottom left corner. Make sure you have the most updated application, because a lot of times USCIS does not accept the outdated application forms. Okay, so we're filling out the paper application. Keep in mind, if you're doing it online, some of the things might look a little bit different, but it's going to be the same information, the same questions. Now, back to the PDF. As you can see, there is a start here. We are not touching any of this information here at the very top. This is for the immigration officer to fill out. So we are starting with the part 1, information about you. Last name, first name, middle name. So last name, we're gonna have John Doe, as always, John Doe. That does not have middle name. If you don't have the middle name, if something is not applicable, if you don't have something, don't leave blank spaces. If you're doing it online, blank spaces are fine, but don't leave blank spaces in the paper application. It will get your application returned back to you. So don't do that. Put not applicable. In fields like middle name, don't use none, because I've seen cases where they confuse it and they use none as a middle name. Don't do that. Put N/A, not applicable. Physical address, obviously in care of, most likely is going to be your name. If there's somebody else, you can put their name in there. Street number, if there is apartment, suite, floor, you can put it here. City or town, state, zip code, postal code, if any. If not applicable, just not applicable. Province, if there is. If not, not applicable. Country, obviously, United States or wherever. Other information, you got alien registration number. If you have any kind of immigration proceedings going, like you have an I-485 or I-589 going, you do most likely have the alien registration number. You put it in here. If you don't have it, you can just type in none. Here is fine. Country of birth, country of citizenship, if different. Class of admission. Now the class of admission, again, depending on which travel document you're applying, depending on your current immigration status, is going to be different. Let's say, for example, you came as a visitor and you're asking for advanced parole so that you can enter country back without applying for another visa. Your class of admission is going to be your visitor visa, all right? But let's say, for example, if you came as a refugee and you are now applying for a refugee travel document, your class of admission is going to be refugee. So whatever it is that you are entering in there. Gender, Male, female, date of birth, US Social Security number, if any. If not, just type in none. Don't leave blank spaces. Moving further to the part 2 now. Application type. Now, this is what kind of travel document you are applying for. So 1A, I am a permanent resident or conditional resident of the United States and I'm applying for reentry permit. So if you're a permanent resident or conditional resident and you're leaving the United States for longer than 1 year, you're applying for that, you're selecting that. 1B, I now hold U.S. refugee or asylee status. So you had your status already granted and I'm applying for a refugee travel document. 1B, if that's what's applicable to you. 1C is I am a permanent resident as a direct result of a refugee or asylee status and I'm applying for a refugee travel document. Now I got a question about this and people were confused. What is the difference between this and this? So in 1C you already have the permanent resident based on your refugee or asylee status that you held for 1 year. So you had your asylum refugee status granted for 1 year and now you have permanent residence. Why would you need to do that then, if you do have your permanent residence? Well, here's the thing. A lot of times, when you are going through the refugee or asylee status, a lot of times, because it takes a lot of time, because it's a lengthy immigration process, the passports from the country that you claimed the refugee asylee status from, they expire and they are no longer valid. And a lot of times you cannot renew it because you claimed the refugee asylee status. In fact, you probably shouldn't be doing it regardless, even if you can, because you're claiming asylum refugee status from the country you ran away from. It's, going back to that embassy and saying, hey, I need to renew my passport. It's a little bit, it will raise suspicion, right? So a lot of times, immigrants, we don't do that as someone who claims refugee asylum status. So you don't have a valid passport from the country, so you need to travel somehow. Even if you have permanent residence, you still need a valid passport in order to travel. What does replace a passport from the country that you ran away from? The travel document. And in this case, that's what you're applying for. All right, so 1D, I'm applying for an advance parole document to allow me to return to the United States after temporary foreign travel. 1E, I'm outside the United States and I'm applying for an advance parole document. So if you are outside of the United States already, that's what you will be selecting here. And if you're inside of the United States, you will be selecting 1D. 1F, I'm applying for an advance parole for a person who is outside of the United States. This I-131 allows you to apply on behalf of somebody else. And this is one of the things that has been recently added, so that there is an option for that as well. If you check box 1F, provide the following information about that person in 2A through 2P. Family name, last name, given name, first name, middle name, date of birth. As you can see in the PDF, I cannot type it in because these fields are not grayed out, which means that you would have to print it out first and then fill it out by hand. Use the black ink. Now, take mental notes or write them down where you have to come back in the application and fill it out by hand, because I've seen a lot of times where people fill it out and then they print it out and then they sign the application, but they forget about these blank fields that they left. So take a note of something that you need to go back to and fill out. Country of birth, country of citizenship for that individual, in case if you're filling out on behalf of somebody, and then their daytime phone number. If you don't select this, still don't leave any blank spaces, put not applicable by hand in this field. Physical address, it's for the individual that you're applying on behalf of. Again, if 1F is not applicable to you and you're doing any of these, it's going to be one selection. There can be multiple selections here, keep in mind. Don't leave blank spaces, put a not applicable by hand. All right, done with the part 2. We're moving on to the part 3. Almost done with the application. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, as you can see. So part 3, processing information. Date of intended departure. I get a lot of questions about this as well. You don't have to know exact date. If you have approximate date, let's say you're planning a travel right now, it's July 23rd, 2024. You're planning a travel somewhere in the middle of September 2024. Obviously, the whole thing will depend on when this is reviewed, when this is approved, so it can be dragged out and you might end up going in December. It's completely fine. You're planning it for the middle of September, just type in 09/15/2024. That is completely fine. Expected length of trip in days. Again, you don't have to be exact. And even if you do say that you're planning to travel for 15 days and you end up staying for 20 days, it's not going to be an issue, as close approximation is completely fine. 3A. Are you or any person included in this application now in exclusion, deportation, removal, or rescission proceedings? Hopefully it is no. Will not create any additional questions. But if it is yes, then you would have to put the DHS office that is holding the deportation, removal, or rescission proceedings. Have you ever, 4A, have you ever before been issued a reentry permit or refugee travel document? So if this is not your first time, then you can say yes, and then the date it was issued and the disposition. So if it's the disposition, for example, it can be lost, there can be a mistake, or you're simply renewing it. It's expired and you're attaching the copy of the expired travel document and you're applying for the new one. That's what the disposition means. And if you never had it, just say no and then not applicable when you print it out. Okay, moving further, it's still part 3, processing information. Moving on to the item 5. Where do you want this travel document sent? Now, because there is an option for you to apply for the travel document outside of the United States as in the United States, you have an option to, number 5 is to send to the US address shown in part 1 of this form. That is the physical address that we put in the part 1 right here, physical address. All right. There is an option. Well, it's an item number 6, to U.S. Embassy or Consulate at, outside of the United States, city or town, country. So, for example, let's say you are or whoever's the beneficiary of this travel document, let's say they are in India and they need to receive their travel document in India. So, what you can do is you can go to usembassy.gov, again, official government website that lists all of the US embassies that are available, and you can find the local US embassy in, I scrolled up too much, in India. There we go. And that will show us, so you select the country, and it will show us the list of all of the US embassies and consulates that are available. So there's a US embassy in New Delhi, US consulate in general in Chennai, in Hyderabad, in Kolkata, so in Mumbai. So there's quite a few options. Let's say you want that travel document sent to US embassy in New Delhi. All you have to do is go to the application. Here it is. So select to US Embassy or Consulate at city or town. You put New Delhi, country, India. Very straightforward. Also, you can select an option to send it to DHS, the Office of Department of Homeland Security, overseas. In some cases, you might want to do that. If that's the case, same thing, city, town, or country. All right. If you checked 6 or 7, where should the notice to pick up the travel document be sent? All right, so when the travel document is ready, they're sending notice. Hey, your travel document is ready. You should go and pick it up. Where will it be sent? Number 8 is to the address shown in the part 2. That's the part 2 address, which is for the person that you're applying on behalf of, or scroll down too much, to the address shown in part 3 of this form. And this is the address that you're entering right here. So if it is a different address, you can enter a third address here. All right, so pretty straightforward. If you have any questions along the way, just drop them in the comments below, and I do have a Q&A section of this channel where I go through all of the comments and I answer them one by one. It might take me some time to get to it. If I don't get to it in a timely manner, post it again, and eventually I'll be able to get to it. Okay, we're done with the part 3. We're moving on to the part 4, which again is a very generalized section. People, get some questions, but it's not complicated. Don't let it worry you too much. Purpose of the trip: just a brief couple sentence description. Visit a relative, or somebody having a baby and I'm going for a baby shower. Completely fine. You don't have to be ultra specific, ultra precise. Just a few sentences briefly describing the purpose of the trip is completely fine. You don't have to go all out describing the details or whatever. Brief description is completely fine. Now, list the countries you intend to visit. If it is just in most of the situation, it's going to be just one country. Let's say India, putting in India, that's it. But if you're going for some kind of traveling and there's multiple countries, just list them there as well. You don't have to list the transit countries. So let's say if you have a flight to India and the flight stops on the way in Germany, you don't have to list Germany because it's a transit country. So don't worry about that. Just put one country where you're going. Unless you're going to Germany, it's a separate flight and you're hanging out for a week there before going to India. In that case, yes, you list Germany. But transit countries, you don't have to list them. Okay, moving further to the part number 5. Complete only if applying for re-entry permit. So part 5 is only for a re-entry permit. Since becoming a permanent resident of the United States or during the past 5 years, whichever is less, how much total time have you spent outside the United States? There's option for less than 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, 1 year to 2 years, 2 years to 3 years, 3 years to 4 years, more than 4 years. Now, as a permanent resident, it's not recommended because that's what the permanent resident entails. Permanent resident entails you maintaining permanent residence in the United States of America. And obviously, if you're spending so much time outside of the United States, of course, people have different reasons. People have careers, people have travel plans, some things change. In that case, they apply for re-entry permit. That's why you need a re-entry permit to show that, well, yes, you still want to maintain your permanent residence in the United States. You want to travel back, but you had these kind of circumstances come up. Number 2, since you became a permanent resident of the United States, have you ever filed a federal income tax return as non-resident or failed to file a permanent income tax return because you consider yourself to be a non-resident? Again, income tax, whenever it comes to, I do have the video. I've done it quite some time ago, but in that video I showed the importance to maintaining permanent residence and on the path to getting naturalized and becoming a U.S. citizen, the importance of filing the federal income tax. It's one of the things that shows that yes, you are maintaining your residence. This is your country of residence. So yes, no. But again, this is only for those applying for re-entry permit. Moving further to part 6, complete only if you're applying for refugee travel documents. So now part 6 is just for people applying for refugee travel documents. So very specific. Number 1, country from which you are a refugee or asylee. Straightforward. If you answered yes to any of the following questions, you must explain on a separate sheet of paper. Include your name and alien registration number on the top of each sheet. Number 2, do you plan to travel to the country named above? Hopefully not. Of course, there can be different kind of circumstances, but it's a big no-no in general for anyone who is in pending asylum refugee status or granted asylum refugee status or even a permanent resident on the basis of asylum refugee status, and even people who had who are already naturalized citizens. It is still not recommended to travel back to the country that you claimed your refugee asylum status from. So hopefully it's a no. But if it is yes, then you do have to do some serious explaining on why is you're going back the country that you said there is a persecution from that country and you're going back there. All right. Since you were accorded refugee asylee status, have you ever returned to the country named above? Again, you see, it's all these questions they show us that it's a big no-no to travel back to that country. But hopefully it's no, but if it is yes, you would have to do some explaining. And again, depending on what kind of explaining you're doing, I would suggest adding an additional evidence that corroborates to what you're stating. So let's say you had some kind of serious medical emergency, so you had to take a risk. Somebody in the family who is over there had a family emergency, so you had to take a risk and go back there. And yeah, if that's the case, obviously you're making a statement, you're explaining why you had to go back. Somebody had a family in the family had an emergency. I had to go back there to whatever, to support them or something. And then you're adding the documents from the hospital, from the doctor, showing that what you're saying is actually, it gets pretty serious. So you definitely want to be able to support what you're saying in your statement. 3B, applied for and or obtained a national passport renewal or entry permit of that country. So as you remember me mentioning earlier in this video, it's a no-no to go back to the embassy of that country and apply for a new passport of that country. Why would you do that if you're claiming asylum refugee status from this country? No. So hopefully it's a no, but if it is yes, then you have to do some explaining. 3C, applied for and or received any benefit from such country. For example, health insurance benefit. Since you were accorded refugee asylee status, have you by any legal procedure or voluntary act, 4A, reacquired the nationality of the country named above? Big no-no. Acquired a new nationality, been granted refugee or asylee status in any other country. So hopefully all of these answers are no. But if it is yes, then you have to do some explaining. Moving further to part 7. Complete only if applying for advanced parole now. On a separate sheet of paper, explain how you qualify for advanced parole. So you do have to do some written statement on this one. And what circumstances warrant issuance of advanced parole. Include copies of any documents you wish to be considered. 1. How many trips do you intend to use this document? 1 trip? More than 1 trip? If the person intended to receive an advanced parole document is outside the United States, provide the location, city, town, and country of the U.S. Embassy or Consulate or the DHS overseas office that you want us to notify. City, country. If the travel document will be delivered to an overseas office, where should the notice be sent to pick it up? Again, the same thing, address shown in part 2 or address shown in part 7 now. And there you go, a separate field for the address to be placed in here. All right, pretty straightforward if you're applying for advanced parole. Moving further to part 8 now. Employment authorization for new period of parole under Operation Allies Welcome. So very specific. As you can see, there's only one question here, one multiple choice, yes or no. That's not really multiple choice, just 2 choices, yes or no. I am requesting an employment authorization, EAD, upon approval of my new Operation Allies Welcome. So if you're part of this Operation Allies Welcome, you already know. If not, then you're just saying no. Moving further, part 9, we are done with the application. It's the signature of the applicant, so you would have to print it out and sign it by hand. But before you print it out, you can put in date of the signature and you can put your daytime phone number. Part 10 is information about the person who prepared this application for you. So if you have an attorney, this is what they're going to be filling it out. So if they're an attorney or a service, a third-party service preparing, you're paying someone to prepare this application for you, this is what they're going to be using, and they will be certifying it by signing it. They will have to sign it as well. If it is your family member helping you, if it is your son, your daughter, somebody, your brother helping you fill this form out, they don't have to be mentioned here as a preparer. I get that question a lot. You don't have to worry about that. If it's a friend, family member, they don't need to be on this application as preparer. This is only when the service is used. Attorney or some kind of immigration forms preparer. There is third-party non-attorney services, gray area, but only in those situations. And that's really it. That's really it. Again, once you print it out, don't forget to go through the whole thing several times. Don't leave any blank spaces. Whatever you couldn't fill out on the computer, make sure to fill it out. Blank ink, print. Don't do the writing style script. Print, black ink, very carefully, very legibly. Make sure that there is no opportunity for anyone to make a mistake, whoever is reviewing your application. But now you're done with that. Additional documents. If you're filling out the online application, after you're done with your main application, you will have the additional evidence where you can upload the scanned documents. Very straightforward. If you have a scanner at home, just scan the whatever documents that are needed to be uploaded and upload them. A lot of times there is a size limit. If you're struggling with it, just lower the resolution of the file and that should solve the problem. Pretty straightforward. Black and white copy is completely fine. All right, you don't have to do the color scans. Black and white are fine. Just make sure that they are clear. Now, if you're doing obviously the paper application, you're sending it as application package by mail, obviously you would have to include again the copies. Don't send the original copies. All right. And here you can find the checklist of all the initial evidence. For whatever type of the document you're applying, there is a separate requirement for whatever it is that you need to send. All right. So for a refugee travel document, you have a copy of an official photo, identity document, proof of refugee asylee status, a statement explaining the reasons for yes response to any questions in part 6. That's all the no questions, if you remember. For reentry permit, there is a separate, so for whichever you're applying, this is where you're gonna find the answers of what you need. Again, if you're doing it online, it's going to be a lot simpler because whichever document you're already applying, it will show you just whatever you need to submit. Pretty straightforward. Okay, let's talk about the filing fee. We're almost done. So the filing fee can be found on their fee schedule page. You can access it through the drop down filing fee here. So I'm going to open the fee schedule and we're going to navigate to 131. If it doesn't come up for you, you can just use it from the drop down here. All the forms are here, but it did already come up for me. So I-131 application for travel document. If you're a refugee, a person paroled as a refugee or a lawful permanent resident who obtains such status as a refugee in the United States, paper filing fee, 0. Obviously, online filing fee looks like it's not even available to file online. To request parole based on urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit for an individual outside the United States, paper filing fee is $630. Online filing fee is $580. So it's cheaper to file it online and faster too. So definitely consider filing it online if that's the case for you. If filing for reentry permit, $630 paper, you cannot file it online. Refugee travel document, you have under 16 years of age, $135, over 16 years of age, $165, not available to file online. So whatever as you can see, there's a lot of different, so whichever applies to you, go through it, find yourself there, and you will have the answer. Again, that's a nice thing if the online application is available for you. Because you can see for a lot of people it's not available. But if it is, you won't have to do this guesswork, how much do I have to pay, because it will tell you right there automatically how much you need to pay. If it is free, it's free. If you need to pay something, it will tell you you need to pay it in order to submit your application. But as a paper application, you will find your answer here on how much you need to pay. Pretty straightforward. Now, as a paper application, where do you file? That's the last thing we're going to talk about in this video. And again, you can find it here on the main application for travel document page, I-131. Where to file, drop tab. So there is a separate link for filing addresses for Form I-131. We're going to open it up. Again, nice thing about filing it online, you don't have to worry about this. You just pay and it's automatically sent wherever it needs to go. But as an application package, again, you have a lot of different options. So depending on who you are, what you're applying for, you will have to go through all of these options and see. There's abused spouse, children or parents, applicants for pending I-485, Cuban family members, Haitian family members, relatives. So let's say you're a refugee. You're applying for a refugee travel document. Let's find the refugee travel document here. Okay, refugee travel document applicants, drop down, there we go. Again, two different options. If you're currently in the United States, you should apply for a refugee travel document and appear for any required biometric service appointment before you leave the United States. Go to USCIS logbooks, filing locations chart for certain non-family based forms page for the filing address based on where you live. So you would have to go here, another link. Another link opens up and there we go. If you're applying, filing for certain employment-based forms or I-131, that's what we're applying for, and you live in, let's say you live in Florida, let's find Florida. There you go, Florida. There you go, here is your two addresses. If you're so it's going to Dallas, Texas. If you're shipping using USPS, this is the address. If you're shipping using a courier, FedEx, UPS, DHL, this is the address. Very straightforward. If you're currently outside the United States, there is a different address. So again, as you can see, there's a lot of different addresses. So you would have to make sure that you're sending it to exactly the address that is applicable. There is no one address that fits all. It has an address specifically for your category, specifically based on your situation. So be very double check, triple check everything. Again, if it is available to file online for you, it's better to file it online because it takes the guesswork out of it. And that's really it. That's really it. As you can see, there is some things that you need to pay attention to and you need to double check, triple check. But if you are careful, if it's not that complicated because all the information that you're filling out, it is your information. All right. So it is nice to have an attorney. It is nice someone who helps you prepare it because they technically should be able to prevent you from making any mistakes. But again, if you're careful, if you're double, triple checking everything and you're verifying everything on the official government website, this is the only source of information that you need to be using for this and nothing else. If you're doing that, then you should be completely fine. You should be able to submit it and within a few weeks should receive your notice of receipt that gives you your receipt number that you can check here in the tools, check the processing times, check the case status and monitor your case as it is being processed. And if you have any questions along the way, like I said, you can drop them in the comments below and I will try to get to them in a timely manner. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. God bless, and I will see you all in the next video.